Hey, it's jrpg. Welcome back to my walkthrough of Final Fantasy VI. In the last episode, we made it out of the Phantom Forest, where we befriended a ghost, killed some other ghosts, and suplexed a train. What an amazing scenario that is. It's just one of my favorites. And it was all fun and games until we saw Cyan's wife and child leaving this mortal coil, which was absolutely heartbreaking. There's no time to mourn, however, as we're still headed for Narshe. I've taken the liberty of getting everyone clear of status ailments and back to full health off camera, so let's just get going. Now, this little area here is one of your last chances to encounter the stray cat, and you're definitely going to want to do that. So if you haven't gotten it before now, take a second and go ahead and grab it here. Fortunately for us, we managed to encounter it the very first time you can, so we don't really have to worry about any more unique encounters for right now. These grasshoppers aren't going to be too much of a problem. All right, get out of my way. Now there's only one place to go, and that's going to be right up this way. You can see the waterfall just over to my right there. So why don't we head inside this cave and see what's going on here. I love this little room. It's just so... it's got such a great mood to it. It's really cool. Anyway, let's keep going. Sabin says this must be Barren Falls. Cyan says to the south is the Veldt. Dangerous creatures there, and that's true, but that is not nearly descriptive enough, but we'll get to that in just a second. Sabin says, and the Empire's right on our tails. Cyan says if we can slip through the Veldt, we can reach the town of Mobliz to the east. And Shadow seems to know what they're thinking. I have served my purpose, he says, but he just doesn't want to jump off this cliff into a waterfall. But that's a much cooler way of saying it, I must say. And Sabin says, Shadow, thanks for your help. Let's join ranks again sometime. But Shadow doesn't reply. He's much too cool for that. And that's right, we are going to jump off this cliff. Jump? Why not? Or are you crazy? And we're going to go with why not. But I love those little options. And the way the camera pans up here is just so good. Like, look at this. We're going to jump for it. And of course, on our way down, we're going to be attacked by piranhas. Now, the way this section works is that it's actually on a 60-second timer, and then the boss will appear. So something you could do is just attack the piranha formations down to 1 and just kind of leave it. They're no real threat at all. They do very little damage. They only have 10 HP, but they do have a rare drop of a tonic. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and try to kill as many of them as possible. Now, I don't really recommend killing innocent piranha for fun. However, they started it, so we're going to finish it. And the only thing that you kind of want to watch out for is that the boss of this section is a little bit strong. So if you're just holding down the A button to fire off those attacks as quick as possible, you kind of want to watch it and make sure you've got one of your actual strong attacks queued up for when the boss might appear, which will probably be after this next formation. If I had to guess, I'm not exactly watching the clock, but I think so. Yep, there he is, the Rizopos. And he's just gonna open with Mega Bolt. Okay. And an ice attack. This is a spicy one. So, Rizopos has 750 HP, and in addition to those attacks that he just laid on us, yep, he's also got El Nino, which is equivalently strong to Ice 3, and this is really going to mess us up. Wow. We almost lost this fight. But that will do it. Okay, Rizopos is down. And for our trouble, we get a remedy, which seems like a kind of wimpy reward for having lost a character there. Draped in monster hides, eyes shining with intelligence, a youth surviving against all odds. That's right, it's Gao. And Gao's music is just so amazing, I just wanted to let that scene breathe a little bit. Oh, it's really, really good. And you are? And he runs away, and there's nothing much else to do here, so let's get out of here. I would like to note, however, how good Sabin is at floating down rivers. Now, where we are right now is the Veldt. And this is the place that I mentioned in the very first episode as the reason this is not going to be a completely comprehensive walkthrough. I should have healed up. Let's get out of here. Oh boy. That was really close. Why don't we go ahead and get Sabin back up, and let's get healed up a bit. Anyway, to finish my thought, as you can tell by the overworld music here, this is a special area that works different from the rest of the overworld. Every monster you have encountered, save for a few exceptions, will appear here. And one thing you'll notice, if we do manage to actually finish a battle normally, is that you don't end up getting experience points for winning fights here. Now that's for an actually pretty good reason, I think, but it can be a little bit weird. And there he is, it's Gao, and he says, wow. Oh, I'm hungry. The problem is we don't have any food for him, so we're just gonna have to punch him right in the face. It's okay, he can take it. Gao says, wow! Wow, ooh! You strangers, go away! You scare animals! And he's gonna hop away. But to finish my thought, every monster is going to appear here, so that's why we've been going out of our way to get those unique encounters before we got here, because if you don't get those, you can never get them, and the monsters will never appear here. So what is this place? What does this all mean? Why does it exist? I will explain that in just a little bit. I probably should have just run away from this fight, but we're just gonna win it. We kind of need a little bit of money. We have plenty of money for everything that we want to do, but there's no reason not to get a couple of gil on our way to town. Boy, they are just loving the counterattacks today. Alright, so here we are in the town of Mobliz, and let's talk to everyone and figure out what's going on around here. You came via Barren Falls? Unbelievable. It's flowing like there's no tomorrow. Like I said, Sabin is super good at floating down rivers. He's gonna be fine. Letters tell us that war has broken out. Yeah, it sure has, pretty much everywhere. Luckily for them, they're pretty isolated, though, so it hasn't come here quite yet. You stopped by the house up in the far north? The guy there is a tad psycho. Threw his own kid out thinking it was a monster. And it might not be exactly clear who she's talking about, but it's when we first began Sabin's scenario, that guy we talked to living alone and thinking we were the clockmaker, that's who they're talking about. This region's called the Veldt. Monsters from all over the world migrate here. Yeah, so that's all they really tell you about the Veldt, is that there are powerful monsters here and that monsters from all over the world migrate here. But there's a lot more than that going on. Only carrier pigeons link our village to the outside. Alright, we don't need to stay at the inn because there's going to be a free bed here, but we do want to stop by the arsenal. There's a few things that we need to buy here. Plenty of good upgrades. So we're going to want a heavy shield for Cyan. We're going to want an extra buckler. 2 Magus hats for the girls. They're not with us yet, but they will be soon, and we're going to want to have those. I'm going to want 2 iron helmets, a kung fu suit, and an iron armor. And that should be everything that I want, so let's go ahead and get equipped up. Most of this is going to be for Cyan. Let's just go one at a time because it's going to improve his defense by a lot. However, you'll see that his speed stat is going to drop all the way down to 26. It was already bad, and it's just going to get worse, but that's just fine. Someone in my comment section astutely pointed out that waiting for Bushido to come out, a way you can work around that is by queuing up long animations with other attacks. So Cyan being slow is actually kind of fine in that way because you usually want him to be going last anyway. We're going to buy a couple of new weapons, even though we really don't need them. We're not really going to be using the fight command. But this buckler is going to help Sabin's defense tremendously. It turns out that something is a lot better than nothing. And let's go ahead and throw the Kotetsu on, and let's sell some crap. We have kind of a lot of stuff on us. We're going to have plenty of money, but there's no reason not to keep our inventory as uncluttered as possible. This leather armor, plume hat can go, leather hats can go, and I think that's just about all I want to sell. Oh, we can get rid of this hairband too. Why not? The rest of this stuff can be thrown, so I'm just going to hang on to it. And you'll notice by my walking speed that when Shadow left, we lost both our sprint shoes and our black belt, which is unfortunate because the black belt can be used in combination with the Genji glove to get you a double counter attack. That would have been a really sweet relic combination, but once again, I don't really want to do spoilers by unequipping things before someone's going to leave. Obviously, I know it's going to happen, but we're just going to have to deal with it. We'll be fine without it, but it is a pretty sweet combination nonetheless. Out hunting, I noticed a kid running with a herd of beasts. His parents know where he is, and they probably do not. Let's get the dog to bark at us. And let's talk to this guy hiding over here. I threw some dried meat into a herd of hungry animals, and some kid emerged and grabbed it. Interesting, interesting. He looks a little bit shocked by what he's seen, like he can't deal with it. Just standing in the corner there, staring off into space. But let's pop in the item shop, and we can buy this dried meat. And I love the description. It just says, eat when hungry. And we do know someone out there that's very, very hungry. And as you can tell, I didn't mention it when we were buying armor, but Gao's icon is down there. He's obviously going to join us. We've just got to figure out how, and dried meat is the way to go. In fact, that would probably get me to join you as well. I do love a good piece of beef jerky. Bird will make a nice little sound at us, and let's talk to this guy right over here. Strong currents run through the Serpent Trench. Heard about it, and let's tell him no. And this is going to play a little cutscene that will show us where the Serpent Trench is going to end up taking us, if we were to somehow get into it. And I do really, really love these Mode 7 graphics. It's just so great. Even though it looks, I don't know, kind of bad, I love it. I love it just the same. And he says, hop into the current and you'll be swept to Nikeah. Too bad our underwater breathing device was stolen. Now that is interesting news indeed. An underwater breathing device, you say. Let's talk to him one more time, though. And let's tell him, yes, we've heard about it. Because we just did. And he says if you had a helmet, you could make it to Nikeah. So we're going to need that helmet, it seems, but we don't quite know how to get it. Let's pop in here. And this guy says, I'm at your service. I send things all over the world. Do you send elixirs, perhaps? I'll be taking that. And let's pop in the basement. The entrance to the Serpent Trench is south of Crescent Mountain. Okay, good to know. And I do love that that guy's just hanging out in the basement, telling anyone that will listen where the entrance to the Serpent Trench is. Let's talk to these kids. The soldier in here is hurt pretty bad. And this kid says, keep your voices down. What about this lady over here? Some soldier wandered here. Busted up pretty bad, too. It doesn't look good. Only the letters coming from the town of Miranda are going to keep him going. And we'll check on him in just a second. We have a couple more people to talk to, though. Dwayne and Katrin are both 16 and in love. And look at him over there just being in love. Let's talk to him. Dwayne has nothing to say. And Katrin has nothing to say. And that's what you do when you're 16 and in love, right? You just stare at each other silently for hours. They didn't have smartphones back then, I guess, so there was no texting. You just get to look at each other. Now back here is why we didn't stay in the inn. This is a free bed to sleep in. And we're gonna go ahead and use it because we've been getting killed this episode. But while we're in here, I think that I want to buy a pair of sprint shoes. Even though I shouldn't have to do this, we're gonna have to. Because we're going to want them for something coming up in just a second here. So let's go ahead and throw them on Cyan. He doesn't need his mithril glove particularly. And now let's get to our cruising speed. Let's go check on that soldier. The injured lad. I'm from Miranda. The Empire invaded and made me join their army. I fled when I heard we were making for Doma. They caught me and did this. And what they did was break every bone in his body. Now I can't even move. I'll never see Lola again. On the desk is a letter. Will you please read it? And of course we will. We're the good guys. I can't get used to Imperial troopers walking the streets of Miranda, but otherwise things are okay. Flowers are blooming in the garden, telling me spring is here. How are you doing? I'm so worried. I wish I could fly to your side. Rest and know that I think about you constantly. Come back to me, Lola. And he says I'd like to write her back, but I can't even pick up a pen. Now we can do something about that. We can send a letter in his stead by going back to the post office right over here. Postage to Miranda is 500 gil. Gonna send a letter for that soldier, right? And yes, of course we are. Why wouldn't we? It's just a nice thing to do. Despite the fact that he served in the Empire's army, he was forced to do that. Now, the way that this scenario is supposed to play out, or I think at least what the developers had in mind, was that you'd periodically come back here and see if a letter has arrived. Now, most people know that you can advance the scenario by having another letter arrive by talking to this guy right here and letting the Serpent Trench cutscene play. However, there is an even faster way to do that, and that's by talking to literally any shopkeeper. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We just open the menu, close it, and head back, and the letter will be there. Now, that does make the scenario kind of silly, but we're going to go all the way through it right now. Another letter has arrived. Could you read it? And yes, of course I will. I can't find your favorite record. I thought I'd play it and you'd be with me, but no record to be found. And he says I'd give Lola everything if only I could move. And we're going to go send that record for him right now. For 500 gil, you can send a record, and we are going to send that record. And then we're going to pop in the item shop, and the mail will have instantly arrived yet again. We're going to have to do this several times, so just bear with me. I realize that this makes it look kind of goofy, but I'd rather just get the relic now. Lola writes, Mother's taken ill. We can't afford medicine. If only we had some tonic. Let's go send him some tonic. It's not completely clear to me why talking to a shopkeeper triggers this, but for 500 gil, we can send the tonic, and we will send it. It seems to me that they just wanted to make it extremely likely that the next time you visit this place, the letter would have arrived. So having some common things trigger it would make sure that that happens pretty effortlessly. However, we can just abuse it like this, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I haven't heard from you. I'm so worried. So let's go make sure that Lola hears from him. 500 gil, you can send a letter. Let's send it and pop in the relic shop again. You said you were reading a book. If only I could read it too. And we're going to go ahead and send her that book. It's not completely clear to me where we get this stuff. Maybe it's just laying around in the room. But let's go ahead and send the book. And we are almost done with this. All right, looks like we're all done. And he says, I heard, in my name you send Lola many things. I wish to thank you. Please accept this as a token of my appreciation. And we received the Tintinabar, or Tintinabulum, which is a word that apparently means a small bell, and how this is going to work, let's go ahead and check it out. It recovers a small amount of HP with each step, and the exact amount is 1/4 of your stamina. And interestingly, it does not factor in any stamina boosting equipment. It just uses your base stamina stats, so it'd be a 1/4 of 33. It's a non-trivial amount of healing, but it is, as far as relics go, not very good, but it is very, very rare. And so we've got one in tow, and now we need to go feed Gao some dried meat. And we're going to spend a lot of time out here, so I'm going to go ahead and put the Tintinabulum, the Tintinabar, on Cyan. That way I won't have to worry about healing him after we get in a lot of battles. Now, as soon as Gao appears, I'll kind of explain more what's going on here. And I'm really, really hoping he just appears after this battle. He probably will. There he goes. Wow, he says again. And we're going to go ahead and feed him some dried meat. Because you eat dried meat when you're hungry. And he is very, very happy about that, although maybe a bit confused. Sabin says, "What the?" Cyan says, "Thou art so odd." I'm Cyan, and he's Sabin. Gao says, "You Sabin, you Cyan. Me want more food." Sabin says, "No more for you." Gao says, "You go, get more for me." Sabin says, "You're a regular munchkin." Gao replies, "And you afraid of me." Sabin says, "You want to fight?" Gao says, "Me not want to hurt you." Sabin says, "Stop looking at me like that." And let me tell you this, Gao is stupid strong. And they're going to do a little bit of a hop dance fight thing here. But Sabin is completely out of breath. "You're pretty tough." And Gao says, "Waha! That fun, you strong." And they go even faster this time, but Gao falls out laughing. "Me like dancing, you good leader." Sabin says, "Shut up." But Cyan breaks it up. "Simmer down, sirs. And thou, O wild one, who might thou be?" And Gao says, "Thou? Thou, thou. Thou, thou. Thou, thou. Thou, thou." But Cyan feels like he's making fun of him and gets upset. Gao says, "You angry?" "Cyan, you angry me?" "Cyan, you angry me?" "Cyan, you angry me?" He sure loves repeating himself. But Sabin drags him off to his side and says, "Listen, his family was just..." And Gao immediately gets it. "Me understand. Me sorry. Me not mean person." Cyan says, "Look, we can't have ye two prancing round all day. Gao, I think we're going to get on well together. Why don't you join us?" Gao says, "I give you present." Gao gives Cyan and Sabin nice gift and thanks for food. Sabin says, "What manner of rubbish do you suppose he's gonna..." Gao says, "Gao's treasure, shiny, shiny. Shiny, shiny, shiny. Can anything be that shiny?" Gao says, "Does Mr. Thou like shiny thing?" And Sabin says, "Mr. Thou's that one, over there." A shiny thing, eh? Think how jealous Locke's gonna be when he hears about this. And Gao says, "Who be Locke? He bad man? Maybe he try steal my treasure. And you know what? He might." It is treasure after all, though, so wouldn't he just be hunting it? Anyway. Sabin says, "Locke, well, but Gao is not listening." Look at him twirl. Listen when someone's talking to you. Cyan says, I think he's trying to tell us something. Sabin says, ugh. All right, carry on. Gao says, here, here. Shiny thing here. Sabin, place where you buy food, it called Mobliz. Cyan, place where you stand, River brought you there. And now it might not be completely clear what he's doing, but Gao is trying to demonstrate where the treasure is by where we're standing. It demonstrates how they geographically relate to each other. It'll be south of Mobliz. Now we go to Crescent Mountain. Shiny thing there. Cyan says, look, let's just go along with him to this Crescent Mountain. And away they go. But Sabin has some reservations about this. Whew. Why'd we invite him along anyway? Gao says, Mr. Thou, hurry up. We're leaving. Sabin says, hey, I told you once, I'm not Mr. Thou. And Gao really, really loves irritating Sabin, but here comes Kappa the Imp, and he's going to attempt to explain Gao's mechanics to us. Kappa says, here's how to build up Gao's skills. 1. Choose Leap, a command that only appears when you are on the Veldt. 2. Keep fighting on the Veldt, and Gao will reappear. He'll have learned the attacks of the monsters you were fighting when he leapt and when he returned, which is something that I kind of forgot about. I remembered him getting the attacks when he leaps, but if he returns, you will also get the rages of the monsters in that battle as well. Wow. Wow. And number 4, choose the command Rage, and you can use any of the attacks he's learned. And now, please continue your quest. Oh, he fell on his face. Come on, Kappa. So, as I was saying, that is not nearly an adequate explanation. But let's start by getting Gao equipped up. We bought him some good gear. He's got the buckler, iron helmet, and kung fu suit on. Now, one thing I want to point out immediately while we have the stat sheet up here is that battle power of his. It is 109 with no weapon, and Gao cannot use weapons, but that's offset by his ridiculously strong battle power. Let's compare it to our other characters. With their brand new weapons, they are only at 91. Gao is at 109. Now, this is going to be a bit of a diatribe, a lot of talking, so if you don't really care too much about Gao's mechanics, feel free to skip ahead for a minute, but for right now, we're going to get into this thing. So, let's take a look at Gao's rage list. So how rages work is you select it in battle, and Gao doesn't even have a fight command. You must select rage if you want him to do anything, at least for right now. So he comes with 9 total rages, and I'm going to go through what these do. The reason it's not clear is because it just gives you the name of the monster and doesn't really tell you anything about what the rage actually does. You have to actually have a PhD in Gao to talk intelligently about this character, and though I do not possess one, I'm going to do my best to explain everything going on here. So let's start with the rages that Gao comes with. First one is the Brawler. And the Brawler will do Stone, which has weak damage and inflicts muddle, but if the enemy happens to be the same level as the person using Stone, in this case it would be Gao, it would deal 7.5 times damage. However, because you don't really know monster levels unless you've got a bestiary open in front of you, you're never going to know if Stone is going to deal a ton of damage, but it has uses, I would say. So let's move on to Whisper. This will cast Gravity, which will deal 50% damage. We've seen it do it before, but that's what it does. This Were-Rat will be a poison attack. Ridditar can do Megavolt, which is a lightning attack. That's a nice one to have for sure. The Lobo has Chomp, which is 1.5 times your attack power, and that will be pretty common in here, as you'll see in a second. Let's keep going. Next is Hornet. That will have Iron Stinger, and that will be 1.5 times attack as well. Trilobiter will do Poison Barb, which is a poison attack. Exocyte will do Pincer, which is 1.5 times attack. Magitech Armor is actually a pretty interesting one. So this one will do Tech Laser, which is lightning elemental damage, and will grant innate safe status. Now, the other things going on with Rage is that you also end up getting the elemental strengths and weaknesses of the monster you're raging as. Sort of the way you can think of it is that Gao actually turns into the monster. So for example, Magitech Armor is pretty great. It grants you that innate safe status, but it will make you weak to lightning the same way that Magitech Armor would be. The final thing that I should mention here is that you will lose control of Gao for the rest of the fight once you select a rage. So if you pick a bad one where he's doing an elemental attack that you don't want him to be doing, you're kind of screwed. We can go ahead and run away from this one. We do not need were-rats. Additionally, Gao will also 50% of the time just do a normal attack, which is why he is a front row attacker. We can run away from this one as well, although it turns out we can't. So why don't we go ahead and throw down a rage, and we'll go ahead and do Magitech Armor. I think this is probably the best one we've got for right now. Now, there's a few rages that we want to get while we're here. We're not going to leave without them, but that might mean that I'll be grinding for a while. So fortunately for you, you won't have to watch that until after I finish talking. So the rages we're targeting while we're here will be the Overmind that we met in the Phantom Train. That will give us Elfire, which is a ridiculously strong fire elemental attack. There are a few more that we definitely want. Stray Cat is a really good one. That's going to have Cat Scratch, which will be 4 times damage. So that is a really beefy physical attack. We can meet the Telstar. That was one monster that we met in a chest in the Imperial camp that will do Sonic Boom, which will deal 5/8 damage and inflict the seizure status. And if you don't know, 5/8 is a little bit more than that. So it is slightly better than the Whispers attack, and in addition piles a little bit of extra damage on top of that. And the final two are very, very good ones. Templar is absolutely amazing. That casts Fire 2, which is absurdly strong for this point in the game, and will have innate safe status. And the Pterodon will cast Fireball, and also has innate float status, which is pretty cool if you ever need to have float. That's a way you can get it. All of the flying enemies will do that for you. And I suppose I can mention one more Veldt mechanic, and that is that the monster formations linearly move through monster groups. So how it works is you will encounter monsters from that group, and then it will move on to the next group until it starts over. So the reason that this is not going to be a 100% comprehensive walkthrough, the reason we're not going to get every single one of Gao's rages, there are 253 in total, is because it is an absolutely brutal amount of grinding. And I'm going to try not to fight every single one of these encounters because I don't want to end up with having a ridiculous amount of money, thereby kind of eliminating the need for judicious spending. We're just going to run away from the monsters we're not targeting as much as we possibly can. But if you're targeting a specific monster, you can end up going through that group and just not encountering it, and then you have to start all the way over from the beginning to get back to that grouping to have another try at meeting that monster. It is absolutely terrible. The other horrific thing about it is that because Gao learns the rages when he leaves and when he comes back, if you fight a battle and Gao does not return and he only has a 5/8 chance to do so, you do not get that monster grouping. And right here we are not going to get the Overmind, I don't think, which is deeply unfortunate for us. So we have not met Stray Cat, Overmind, Pterodon, or Templars yet. We're just going to keep fighting. So all of that being said, I think Gao is a pretty miserable character to max out. I feel like the developers expected you to just get a couple of rages and be pretty happy with that, which is kind of what we're going to end up doing. But completionists out there, this has just got to be insanely frustrating. There was no way of knowing in any given area if you've met every single monster that could appear in that area. Therefore, you will have missed them and they won't appear here and you won't be able to complete Gao's rage list. Now that is definitely a masochist-only endeavor. It does, in a lot of ways, just feel designed to be frustrating, and even beyond that, using rages can be a little bit frustrating as well because I don't find it fun to lose control of a character, and rage is literally the only thing Gao can do in combat for a while. I've done a lot of complaining thus far, but I don't want to give the impression I think Gao is bad, so I want to talk for a moment about why Gao is actually better than most people think. I've seen videos that describe him as a secret S-tier character, and while I wouldn't go that far, he is certainly very good provided you know how to use it. To that end, I'll leave a link in the description to something called the Gao Bible, an extremely detailed guide to using Gao effectively. In short, there is a rage for every situation, so if you know what you're doing and spend enough time filling out the rage list, Gao can actually be quite overpowered, especially in the early to middle game, as evidenced by the fact that he has access to spells like Fire 2, which not even Terra can cast yet. Now, I think I've got everything out of my head that I wanted to say about this, so I'll see you at the end of the grind and we'll go over the rages that we end up with here. And Gao is back. Wow, he says. Wow, ow, I'm Gao. I'm your friend. Let's travel together. Now, I have been out here for approximately 5 hours getting this rage. I would not recommend anyone else do this, but we finally got the Overmind, which is going to give us access to Elfire. The problem is that we now have 37,000 gil, and Telstar is out here, so that means that we end up getting Green Berets, which means we have encountered Telstar 15 times other than the leap that we did, for a grand total of 16 times, giving us 15 Green Berets, which is insanely unlucky. I have fought hundreds and hundreds of battles out here. So, what I'm gonna do is kind of sell some of this stuff off and get us back to a more normal amount of gil and stuff. Let's go ahead and sell some of these Green Berets. We will not need 15. Let's sell like 10 of them. You really shouldn't have access to this many Green Berets at this point in the game. In fact, I'm going to sell one more and just make it more normal. And then what I'm going to do is buy a bunch of White Capes until we have... Let's buy one more until we have like a more normal amount of gil, because I would like to still be like kind of plugged into the economy of the game. Yeah, let's keep going. This is like, I don't know, closer to normal. And we wound up getting every single rage that is on offer at this point in the game. All I wanted was the Overmind, Telstar, Templar, and Pterodon, and we ended up getting absolutely all of them because the Overmind just absolutely refused to show up. But now, we get to finally continue actually playing the game. So let's get back to Crescent Mountain. I am just so relieved. Oh, and before we continue, why don't we go ahead and throw a Green Beret on everyone that can wear one. That's gonna bump up our HP a little bit, and I believe Sabin's already wearing one. And let's throw some relics on Gao. He was wearing the sprint shoes, but I just wanted to show that I hadn't equipped him before the cut. So we'll put the sprint shoes on and the hyper wrist because he is going to physically attack 50% of the time, so having some extra vigor couldn't hurt. Okay. I just want to be done with this place. I never want to come back here, but you know what? We are going to actually be coming back here. So here we are in Crescent Mountain, looking for Gao's shiny thing. And Sabin figures it out. Sabin says, Cyan, the shiny thing Gao spoke of is in here. And Cyan says, Sir Gao, where exactly is it? And Gao says, Gao, forget. Sabin says, shall we look around? And Cyan says, indeed. So we're going to be hunting around in here. There are 4 cutscenes in here we want to get, so let's find them. Sabin says it's not over here. No, it is not. So what about over this way? Tonic. So we just find one tonic over here, and Cyan says, this is Sir Gao's treasure? But Gao looks surprised. No, it is not. And Sabin and Cyan are both very relieved that that's not the actual treasure. So what about up over this way? Sabin says, hey, Gao, what's wrong? And Gao slowly creeps up behind him and shouts, Gao! And what did he do? He chucked Sabin's money pouch over the edge, and Sabin says, my pouch! There was 500 gil in it! Which, of course, Gao thinks is really funny, but Sabin does not, saying, Gao, you... But Cyan steps in again. Oh dear. Sir Sabin, let me handle this. Sabin says. But Cyan doesn't really handle anything. He just, stops Sabin from killing Gao. But once again, Gao loves antagonizing Sabin, so... At last, we found it. Cyan says, is this it? Gao's treasure? Gao says, treasure, yes. Cyan says, looks like glass. And Sabin says, looks like it just might fit. Is this of any use? Sabin says, will this really let us breathe underwater? And yes, it will, although it is not clear how it lets all three of us breathe underwater. But anyway, let's go. Cyan says, current's fast. And Sabin says, no kidding. But unless we hop in, we won't see our friends again. And it looks just like the Veldt River. And Gao is, of course, afraid to do this because who wouldn't be, other than Sabin and Cyan. Let's go! And at this point, Sabin is extremely used to doing this. And Gao, after some trepidation, jumps for it. And here we are in the Serpent Trench, and I think this Mode 7 scene is just so cool. The way it's kind of darkly lit is supposed to tell you that you're underwater. And this is going to end up working a lot like the Veldt River, where you have choices to make about what directions to go, and random encounters like this. Now with Gao, we are going to use Templar, because Templar is insanely good. I'm not even going to bother using Overmind, despite the fact that it took me 5 hours to get it. Monsters in here aren't too tough, although they can do some counterattack stuff with Mega Bolt that could really mess you up. But what I was getting at a moment ago is that it's going to work like the Veldt River in that we have to make choices about the direction we're going to go, and we're going to choose right every time we get the opportunity to do so, basically by doing nothing. Unlike the Veldt River, that's on a time limit. It will just choose for you if you don't do anything, but that's okay because we don't need to do anything. We want to go right. The reason why we want to go right is because if we don't choose right, we won't get the treasures that are in here. And there are 2 in total, and we're going to get both of them. And that is why Templar is amazing. Fire 2, ladies and gentlemen. And a free Phoenix down for our trouble. That is nice. And here we are. The first treasure room is going to have 1 X potion, and let's get back out there. And we're going to choose right, like always. And I believe this is the only encounter between us and the next treasure, which is something I'm very interested in getting. And that is going to be in this cavern here. Now we see a treasure box over to our left. We can't quite get it now, so let's keep going. And that is full of water. And in order to fix that, we're going to step on this switch over here. That's going to lower the water and let us jump down here. Which is going to give us access to this. Another green beret. And like I said, you should absolutely not have 15. I was just insanely unlucky. So we're just going to hang on to that one as though this was a normal playthrough and not one where Rizapas almost killed us and it took us 5 hours to get Overmind to spawn. And just like that, we are through the Serpent Trench. Washed up on the shore again. And we're just gonna pop right up because we're totally fine. We're super used to this now. Now, Nikeah is basically a huge marketplace, so why don't we go ahead and talk to everyone and see what's going on here. This guy says, have any imported goods? And you know what? We did, but we sold them all. No one can reach Nikeah unless they have a ship. That's not entirely true. If you have an underwater breathing device, you can definitely get here. This kid says, you took one look at me and thought I was a loser, right? You're obligated to buy from me now. And that's just good salesmanship, right? And so all of these relics, we already know what they do. We could probably grab like extra white capes if we wanted to. The fairy ring's not very good, neither is the star pendant or goggles, so we're just gonna leave it alone for now. However, over here, there is one new thing for sale, and that is the silk robe. And even though this is slightly worse defensively for Celeste, we're gonna buy 2 of them because it does increase their magic power, and that's gonna be great. So we'll hang on to those for now. This guy says looks like junk, but some of it is actually okay. And at the weapon shop, we could buy a mithril pike for Edgar. He can use pikes, and they are better weapons, but we're basically never going to use attack with him. We're just going to be using his tools, so we can hang on to our money for now. The land of the East Doma fell to the Empire. We know that all too well, in fact. Move along now, you're in the way. This lady doesn't like us at all, and we are going to get out of her way. A rock slide has blocked the path leading north. If it wasn't, we could get straight back to Narsh, but for now we can't. There's a chocobo stable over here, and really nothing else to do, but let's pop in the inn really quick. Because over on this right side, there's going to be an elixir hiding in a clock as usual. And with that out of the way, there's only one more thing I want to do here. And that's pop in the cafe. We met that odd man, lives near the Leet River. His wife bore him a son 13 years ago. It was a problem birth, and the woman passed away. The man totally lost it. He thought the newborn was a monster. Wonder what happened to the poor little baby. The poor little baby is in fact in our party right now, unfortunately, and what a sad story that is. There used to be ships sailing to the southern continent. Zen, Albrook, Miranda, they've all been smashed. That is unfortunate. However, there is a ship in the dock that we can use, and we will in just a moment, but let's talk to this nice lady right here. The dancer says, "Yoo-hoo, you handsome thing. How about joining me, tee-hee?" And Cyan is, of course, shocked by this. How dare you, you licentious howler? The old-timiest insult ever. Dancer says, "Geez, don't blow an artery, baby." And kind of pulls him near here, and he backs off so fast he slams into the wall. But baby... Sabin says, "Cyan, don't let it get to you." Cyan says, "I'm not like that." And Sabin, good friend he is, says, "No one thinks you are. Just let it go." And has a bit of a chuckle. Dancer says, "Stop whispering. My ears are burning, baby." Cyan says, "Enough. Have you no shame? I'll have you know," and goes on and on and on. Goodness. And that is an amazing little cutscene. Cyan is such a prude. Now, all that's left to do is take the boat out of here, but that's going to have to wait until next time because I'm all out of time for today. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next Final Fantasy Friday.